Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. A victim of child sexual abuse reached out to radio personality Lady Lee on Hot FM's Morning Buzz on Thursday. Her story of child sexual abuse and its devastating impact on her life, even now as an adult, struck a chord with listeners, some of whom phoned in to share that they too were victims of child sexual abuse. The stories shed light on the prevalence of child abuse in St. Lucia and just how deeply the victims of this crime are affected. The matter also allowed the good and caring nature of St. Lucians to shine through. Rochelle Gonzalez tells us more in this report.
The Morning Buzz with Lady Lee on Hot FM and Hot 7 TV this Thursday morning was especially scorching as the writer brought to light a topic that has been a deep-rooted issue in the underbelly of St. Lucian society for as long as can be remembered and recorded. The author of the day was a victim of child molestation, and she opened up about the effects that the crime has had on her life, even into adulthood. The topic was especially engaging as it shed a much-needed light on the prevalence of child molestation in St. Lucia, a crime which has continued to thrive due to a number of reasons, including underreporting as a result of shame, fear, and the feeling of hopelessness in the island's justice system. Another reason that the crime goes underreported is due to arranged payments, where perpetrators pay off the victims or their parents in exchange for their silence.
I am a 25-year-old young lady. Have done a lot of things in my early teen life due to the fact I was sexually assaulted by my own uncle at the age of 5. My mom knew, but she couldn't have done anything because we were poor and she had no power. Lately, I grew up living my life reckless. At the age of 13, I was already taking care of myself. 2 guys that took advantage of me. I went to the police and the female officer did nothing about it. During school time, I was mentally and physically broken. The children made fun of my hair, the way I looked. I wasn't like them. I had nothing. At the age of 17, I sought help. I wanted to change my life and better myself. I had goals to achieve.
This was just a snippet of the situation of the day, but it didn't take long after the reading of the letter for other victims of the same crime to call in telling of their experiences, which further highlighted just how prevalent the crime is on island.
I would like to say to the caller, she is not the only one. I understand with her because I was in the same situation. And it was done to me by more than one person in my family. And, it is nice to know that she is keeping herself up. Just continue keeping that faith, and God is going to put all your faith in God, and He will see you through, my darling. He will be able to help you get through all of this, because I thought I couldn't. I'm on my way to being 50, and I became a mother of 3. Still, I had to raise my kids on my own. I did it, and believe me, my girl, you can get through this. Just seek the help that you have to get, and the Lord will help you through the rest. Put it in His hands.
This is so heartbreaking and touching because I am a victim of rape. When I was a little girl at the age of 4, and when I was almost 13 years old by a family member. And listening to this young lady's story, it's really painful. What I can say to this lady, because it's going to cost her a lot to get over this. She'll be going through a lot with men, because a lot of men, when they notice you're vulnerable, they take a lot of advantage of you. And I went through that same thing. And most people I went to when I was a little girl could not help me. I got fond of, people made fun of me. Even my relationships, those men used to throw these things back at my face. And what I can say to her, the only solution is to keep herself to herself, seek God.
The letter also showed the kinder and more caring side of St. Lucians, as the majority of callers spoke words of encouragement and empathy to the writer. In some cases, opportunities were even presented to the young lady, as she explained that she was facing great difficulty with finding employment.
Someone said, young lady, please do not give up and keep trying. The British Army will begin recruiting from the Commonwealth in May, and it is a great opportunity. Look online and sign up and express your interest. Please get in touch if you need help with the form.
I wish her all the best and the strength. I commend her that she can continue, in that spirit, because that's a very high spirit. Imagine Lady that touched me. If that lady could have make pastries and stuff, because I myself have a local bakery and only on a Sunday I bake in. So if she could have make pastries, cake and stuff like that, I even given her opportunity to make cake so that she can sell. I don't need nothing from it, honestly. Yeah. So if she can, what I will do, I will call the front desk and leave my number with you. If she can make pastries, if she's skilled in that field, I give her an opportunity.
Presently, the Children and Young Persons Act of 1972 and the Criminal Code of 2005 are the only pieces of legislation that speak to the care and protection of children and the management of youth at risk in St. Lucia. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Rochelle Gonzalez.
St. Lucia Labour Party spokesperson on health, Moses Jabatis, has called for the removal of the country's tourism minister, Dominic Fady, as the chairman of the Command Center, the body tasked with overseeing government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. During a debate in Parliament on Wednesday, the 24th of February, the Viewfort North MP launched a scathing attack. Nisha Charles tells us more.
Following the island's first reported case of COVID-19 in March of 2020, government embarked on establishing a COVID-19 command center to better respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. Chairing the command center has been the island's tourism minister, Dominic Fady, a move that has been met with resistance from the main opposition, St. Lucia Labour Party. In Parliament on Wednesday, the MP for Viewfort North, Moses Jabatis, expressed his disdain for the minister's placement at the helm of the committee.
I call for, Mr. Speaker, a reconfiguration of the command center with technical people who are able to analyze the data and plan for the outcomes in an objective and scientific manner, Mr. Speaker. I call for the reallocation of the Minister for Tourism. He should not be the head of that command center, Mr. Speaker. He should be removed from heading the command center. Because every time the member for Ancillary Canneries speaks in relation to the command center and so on, 75 to 80% of the time he speaks about tourists being able to drink their wine, the hotels, the this, the that. This, in this crisis and in this disaster time, it should not be the member for Ancillary Canneries and this Minister for Tourism heading a command center in a disaster, a medical disaster called COVID-19, where 32 people have died.
Jabatis insisted that a more competent person in matters relating to health should chair the command center, and that the tourism minister was not poised to speak on such matters.
When it is time for war against viruses or diseases or anything like that, or if it is war, you have soldiers, a general in charge of the war. This Minister for Tourism is no general in charge of no medical disaster in this country. He should be removed. And if we are serious, Mr. Speaker, we are going to follow the science. We are going to follow the science. And you see all around the world what is happening. Governments more and more are realizing that they must follow the science. Not a Minister for Tourism who's just joking in the Parliament about all kinds of things.
Parliamentarians took to the House of Assembly on Wednesday to debate, among others, a resolution to borrow $80 million for government's COVID-19 response. For the Hot 7 News, Nisha Charles reporting.
Health Minister Mary Isaac has dismissed a rumor which has led to the Ministry of Health issuing a statement rubbishing misinformation being circulated. On Wednesday, the Ministry of Health addressed the matter which related to an alleged shortage of medical gas or oxygen at the respiratory hospital. In its statement, the ministry categorically denied that there was any oxygen shortage at the hospital. On Thursday morning, Minister Isaac said the rumor is the work of troublemakers.
I do not know where this mischief is coming from, but I can assure you it is just mischief. And people should be taking health care more seriously than what I am seeing unfolding in St. Lucia, because tomorrow it could be any one of us. that's inside of that hospital. I will not say that everything is kosher. It is a respiratory hospital that we quickly had to renovate. We had to furnish. We had to do all kinds of things for us to get it up and running in quick time. So I'm not going to say that it is like a palace or a hotel, or actually up to what it is supposed to be. But as far as I know, we have done the best we can. We have frontline workers working in that institution, putting their lives at risk every day to save our people, to treat our people, to care for our people. So I believe we ought to be very grateful for that, and thank God that we do not have a situation where there is no place to put our people, like some countries that put them in schools and all kinds of other housing facilities.
The statement highlighted the fact that the medical facility was not designed for such a radical increase in cases of COVID-19 and demand for oxygen. However, Isaac explained that fortunately the influx was contained nonetheless.
All I can say is that even if we've had an influx, right, the hospital is equipped to take a number of persons. And right now, the hospital is not overflowing to the point where you have people outside standing around who cannot get, oxygen. The hospital has so many rooms and so many patients who require oxygen. And the doctors and the nurses are ensuring that these people get the supply that they need.
According to the statement, over the last 6 days, commencing Friday, the 19th of February, the hospital consumed 856 cylinders of medical gas at a cost of $195 per cylinder. Independent Senator Mauricia Thomas Francis has called for more investment for the island's healthcare sector. This after concerns have been raised over shortages of critical supplies at the island's hospitals. While the Ministry of Health has denied such shortages of oxygen in particular, the senator says that critical supplies, functional equipment, and a boost in human resources are needed.
St. Lucia's healthcare system has been faced with many challenges, and the advent of COVID-19 has only worsened the situation. Critical supplies, functioning equipment, and human resource are all things that the island's hospitals need to fully function and to give optimal care to patients. In Senate on Tuesday, Senator Mauricia Thomas Francis made an appeal for more investments into healthcare if the country wants to come out on the end of the pandemic winning. She asked that some of the monies being asked for the COVID-19 response to go towards these investments.
From my experience, there are some critical medical supplies that are in short supply at OKEU. We have a situation where we have equipment, some of the equipment don't work. We still have to get an ambulance to take a patient from the emergency to Tapia Hospital and pay to get a scan done, because the last time I interfaced with the hospital, the scanner wasn't working. That was an issue that we had before OKEU was commissioned, and I thought that was a thing of the past, but that issue is still there, and I believe we need to look at the equipment, make sure that we don't just have equipment, but we have equipment that is functioning, Madam President.
Recently, rumors surfaced that there was a shortage of medical gas or oxygen at the island's respiratory hospital amidst an increased need due to COVID-19. While the ministry has denied the shortage, it did say that the current gas system at the respiratory hospital, which existed before the move to the Owen King EU hospital, was not designed for such a radical increase. Thomas Francis called on those responsible to pay more attention to the island's healthcare needs.
We can have a beautiful physical plant, because I don't know if you've been there, madam, but OKEU is a beautiful physical plant. It's beautiful. But if we do not have the medicines, we do not have the supplies that are necessary, we do not have the human capital, and we do not have the equipment, at the end of the day, it is not going to be useful for us. Of course, a well-functional hospital must have all these. Our citizens deserve proper health care. A healthy nation is a wealthy nation, and I think all our thrust should be towards making sure that we have a healthy nation.
Over the last 3 weeks, the respiratory hospital recorded an exponential increase in the consumption of medical gas. This was as a result of a number of patients and acuity of the patients admitted at the hospital. The medical gas demand moved from 50 cylinders daily to 120 cylinders. For the Hot 7 News, Nisha Charles reporting.
Plans for Carnival 2021 are still being considered. So says Minister for Culture, Senator Fortuna Belrose. She says a virtual package is being put together.
Ordinarily, on St. Lucia's calendar of events, independence celebrations are followed swiftly by the revelry of Carnival festivities. But these are not ordinary times, and so for the second consecutive year, St. Lucia Carnival as we know it will not be hosted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Culture Minister Senator Fortuna Belrose says the Events Planning Committee is working on a virtual carnival production.
As you know, we're still underneath the COVID protocols, but I know that our teams at Events St. Lucia have been looking at the situation. They have been discussing it with the medical personnel, and for now they presented us a nice virtual package of programming for the carnival. But again, these are decisions that will be made later on, because as you know, our budget cycle begins next month. Yeah, the end of the financial year is next month. And of course the government has to look at the total picture in terms of what it presents to the nation in the coming year. So with respect to Carnival, again, the issue of the protocols, the state that we are in, the availability of the vaccines by that time, a lot of issues will have to come into play in terms of looking at it in finality. But as of now, a package of virtual programs have been prepared for presentation to the Cabinet of Ministers at some point.
Carnival enthusiast and artistic director of Treble of 12 Carnival Band, Adrian Auger, says a traditional celebration of Carnival in St. Lucia does not seem feasible.
I do not see it happening. I would be very happy if it did, but I don't see it happening for two reasons. We're already effectively in March. The planning horizon for Carnival has to be at least 6 months. We're getting to the point where we decided to cancel last year a carnival, not last year, 2020, a carnival which we should have had. Imagine at the same point you have not decided whether you're going to have it or not. I don't think you can gear up at this point easily.
He is keeping an open mind about a virtual carnival for 2021.
But a virtual carnival is at best a second option. Let's see what it can do. We've seen some interesting virtual versions of carnivals and other festivals happening. We're keeping an open mind. The important thing for a physical, traditional style carnival will be obviously the health considerations. I don't see those resolving in time for us to take a responsible position on Carnival, and I think it's important to take a responsible position with regard to the health of the nation, participants, visitors, revelers, etc. But also, there would have to be resources on the table to help Carnival bands gear up, because last year was a write-off and the year before that, not much better. So we have to think, how do we refinance the festival?
Auger informed that the Carnival Bands Association will meet with the Events Committee very soon. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
Infrastructural projects being pursued by the government will not bring about the kind of social stability that is desperately needed at this time. So says Independent Senator Adrian Auger. His comments add to building concerns surrounding the government's response to the impact of COVID-19 on people's livelihoods.
A partial scale-down introduced to address what Ministry of Health officials called the third wave of COVID-19 on island led to even more tough times for already struggling small businesses. Joblessness is a very real issue for an increasing number of citizens. Members of the government have argued that St. Lucians are a proud people who do not want handouts, but rather opportunities to earn a living. The argument has been that with capital projects underway, these will create jobs that will filter down and cause ripple effects in the job market. Independent Senator Adrian Auger disagrees and views the argument as posturing on the part of the government.
I don't think that many of us are satisfied. I think the general consensus, even among policymakers, must be that more needs to be done and should be done. I think anybody who walks among the communities, urban and rural of St. Lucia, knows the despair and the lack of hope that is pervasive. I'm particularly worried about young people who tend not to be thought of as top priority, but who are in the prime years of their life and need to be embraced and need to be considered. I think we need more active social programs on the ground. The assumption of trickle-down benefits, I think, is a little perverse. It hasn't worked anywhere else, and there's no reason to believe that concentration on high-level infrastructural projects is going to bring the kind of social stability that we're looking for, that we're hoping for. So that hasn't really worked anywhere, and it's disingenuous at this point to think that large infrastructural projects are going to deliver that stability, that community normalcy that is necessary just to get people through this.
Auger is of the opinion that the best approach would have been to have an interim budget 6 months into the COVID crisis, when there was information to plan and address the consequences of COVID-19 prevention and control measures. Now, he says, the need is for community focus and transparency on the part of the government.
I think that community-based projects are really important. I would like to also see a return to objective transparency. So, for example, today we're borrowing a substantial amount of money. How is that money going to be spent is really important, and also how it's going to be repaid. So the debt restructuring, the debt management strategy of the government is going to be critical. The Prime Minister has assured us that this is necessary, okay, but then let us look at the repayment strategy. What exactly are we going to do to generate the debt service?
The senator is also calling for greater attention to post-COVID recovery.
The priority of getting us through this is obviously paramount, but post-COVID we also have to think about how the economy restructures, how the economy re-engineers, really, because so much has changed. And the truth is that many businesses, many communities, many families are at risk. And to just return to normalcy, which in my view is not optimal anyway, you will miss the opportunity to re-engineer the country. I mean, tourism, for example, has its weaknesses, and rethinking tourism in a post-pandemic economy, I think, is a wonderful opportunity and one that should not be missed.
Auger has become an outspoken critic of the COVID-19 response and the handling of the crisis. His motives have been deemed less than pure by government operatives, who say his arguments are inconsistent.
You're watching the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Stay with us. There's more news coming up after the break.